All right. Hello to everybody who is slowly entering the webinar now as we officially hit 1 o'clock Eastern time at least. Thank you all for joining us today for our discussion about summer melt. We're going to give it a moment for everyone to join us, especially if they're coming from lunch on the East Coast, and then we'll get started. All right. This is that awkward time where I look at my clock and I look at the number and I try and figure it out. But I think we're going to start moving. The good thing is that the first couple of slides are pretty logistical and operational. So if anyone's trickling in still, you're not going to miss any of the big important things right now. But thank you again if you're just joining us. We're super excited to have you joining us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Mel Greiner. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Campus ESP, and just want to welcome you guys all and thank you for spending some time with us today. As we get into things this afternoon, a couple things just to keep in mind. We use Zoom webinars, which means that all lines are on mute. Aside from our panelists, I cannot see or hear any of you. So unfortunately, can't see your bursts of excitement or see if you start talking and asking questions. That does not mean we do not want you to participate. There is the Q&A option and the chat option, both available at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, depending on where your settings are. Please feel free to use them the entire event. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your questions, and we'll make sure, particularly at the end, that we have some time to answer those questions if you do have them. And the answer always to this is yes, we will be recording this. We will be sending it out to everybody, even if they have to jump off at any point during the event. We also will send you the slide deck so you have it. If there's anything on here that you want to remember, you don't have to take notes. You'll get this. And we'll give you a couple of little exciting things that we want you to have as well, all in an email sometime tomorrow. I don't want to give you a time promise. We'll see how busy my morning is, but definitely by end of day tomorrow, you will have this in your inbox. At this point, I want to introduce the amazing people who are on this call with me. First, I'm going to introduce Lisa. Lisa comes to us from Utah State University, where she's the Senior Director of New Student Enrollment and Student Orientation and Transition Services. That is a mouthful, Lisa. You want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. So Lisa Simmons, I work in our Student Orientation and Transition Services. I'm over basically MELT, making sure that our students who confirm end up attending. I'm over our orientation programming, our parent family programs, and then also part of our first year seminar. We collaborate with our faculty on that.
Great, thanks, Lisa. And then we have Nathan, I'm not even going to read your title because I know it's a in the works process. You do all of the things over at New Mexico State University. You want to tell us whatever you want your title to be moving forward?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Melissa. So my name is Nathan Cheeseman. I am in charge of our orientation and family engagement programs at New Mexico State University. We just changed out of the admissions office, and so that's where my title is a little bit in flux. But similar to Lisa, oversee our student orientation and family orientation programs, family engagement for prospective and current students, and then help with other parts of campus with any visit-related welcoming to the university, I guess you could say.
Wonderful. And then I am also joined by one of my colleagues, Ashley Perry. Ashley, you want to give us a little bit of background on what you do at Campus ESP, as well as what you were doing prior to working with us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Perry. I'm Senior Account Manager at Campus ESP. I work with customers to support them as they use their platform. So MELT is a conversation that we're having right now. So I work with customers to support those efforts, engage families and their students, and really just support them throughout that college process. But fun fact, I come from a college campus. My last one was Coastal Carolina University, where I worked in orientation, transition, and family programming. So really owning the family relationship once the student matriculated. So I'm excited to share my experience, but also go Sean, thanks Josh, and work with Nathan and Lisa on their experience currently too.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We're super excited to have you and all your valuable insight today. This is where I do my really quick 30-second commercial before I let the experts really talk. But I know we have some individuals on the call who are not current Campus ESP users, so we'd like to just give you a little bit of context on who we are and why we care about this topic and why we want to be able to help you out here during this transition period that's coming up this summer. Campus ESP is really a family engagement platform that we work with institutions through the entire student life cycle. So from inquiry for those first people trying to get through the admissions team, all the way to honestly a student's graduation day, and honestly sometimes past. We work with, actually, I will say, we officially have hit 400 customers. It's a pretty big fun milestone for us, so we're really excited about that. And we have about 9 million families in our portals across those institutions, which means we're really helping a lot of families across the country right now, which is pretty exciting. We really do a couple of different things here, and I'm going to walk through this really, really quickly, but at our heart, we are, yes, we are software. We are a platform. We are an all-in-one comprehensive platform, if you will. Campus ESP has a lot of different moving pieces to help you communicate with families in different ways. That is a portal that is tailored to their experience and where their student is in their journey. We also allow email systems through our platform. We do SMS texting. We help with e-commerce and event registration, all the fun things. But software is only one part of the puzzle, and it doesn't do too much for you if you don't know how to use it or use it effectively, which is why one of the big things at Campus ESP is our team. Like Ashley, about 50% of our team was formerly on-campus staff. They are the people who have been in their shoes. You guys have peers basically on our team who understand what you're doing on a daily basis, and they're really here to help you. That goes from your implementation and setup all the way through your entire engagement with us. We have account managers that are helping you on a regular basis really be successful. And then 3 is analytics. We are big believers in data. To know something is working, you deserve to have some numbers about that. And we really try to elevate that to you on a regular basis so you can see how your families are engaging, what they want more of, what you should be doing more of, so that you really can be efficient. And if you ever do want to learn more about Campus ESP as a customer or as just a friend, we have a great area on our website called Blog and Resources, where obviously there's a ton of articles, webinar recordings, other kind of information that you can access at any time just to learn more about how you can use families to hit some of your institutional goals. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Ashley as we really get into the crux of things, which is how to communicate with families during the summer and leading into orientation to help reduce your amount. So Ashley, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. Well, awesome. Well, I don't want to stress you out with the first thing that you're seeing is stress on the screen, but want to set some foundation for why we're here and just to give you some basis of how students may be feeling during this process. And so with a study with RNL and ZME, we found out that 89% of families or students feel stressed very often in this process. 79% feel anxious, and then 74% feel worried very often. So want to give you this information and go to the next one, Mel, that you should be involving your families in the university experience. And so this is very much your students' experience, but your families are the ones influencing those conversations, and they want to feel connected and involved with the student's institution. And to do that, it's getting your families involved in that enrollment strategy. And so this is just a summary of some of the results that we received from an RNL survey that we've done. And the most important thing to highlight is the quality of schools' communications with parents and families. So this is where you can come in and really use your resources and knowledge and expertise to share information with families throughout the enrollment strategy. So you're thinking about why you should communicate with families to prevent MELT. Well, the first thing is to build trust early on, and then to help families feel more connected to you all, and then to empower families to support their students. So the more they know and the more information that they have from you, the better they are to support them moving forward. And it also keeps those students on track to move forward and hopefully move in and go to Welcome Week and for events on campus. So just to pass it on to Nathan and Lisa, I would love to hear how you feel about this, what you're doing on campus to support your families and your students. So let's start there. Whoever wants to jump in first.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, we really see the last piece down here that Lisa has on the screen, the nudging the nudger or supporting the support system is really the reason to communicate with families throughout the transition period to help prevent MELT. Because we know that whether you're at an institution like New Mexico State that has a high first-gen population, or any other kind of university, especially our, what gen are we, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, I don't know. But differently than maybe a couple of past generations, students are really engaging with their families to make the college decision. And so even if they're deciding between our institution and another, or going to the community college associated with our university, or starting at the university, or going right to work and then maybe thinking about college later, even if they've already applied and said they were coming and those kind of things. We really want to make sure the family is a part of that communication so that they can, like Ashley said, help keep the students on track for any timelines that we have if the student does make the decision to come to New Mexico State.
For sure, and I think students really care about what their parents think about institutions, and parents really have an impact on what their students' decision making and their action and movement through the transactional things that they have to do to get ready. And I think building that trust is super important. I think most of our institutions are large and complex. I know Utah State is a land grant in Utah, so we have 30 sites and campuses throughout the state, and we're tasked with bringing all of them on board and helping them get customized information, but also like having some systemic information that's consistent. And I know sometimes that can be overwhelming for students and parents, and it's important to help them understand that there are people on our side looking at the process, trying to remove barriers and trying to present the most seamless onboarding possible. And if they have questions, they can come to us and just build that trust that we are on their team. We have similar goals for their students.
Awesome. So moving into our tips, we have 3 that we're going to focus on, but the first one is working with and building on efforts done by admissions. We know that admissions and enrollment are doing a great job really driving that engagement with students, hopefully getting them to come to campus. And so we want to continue that work with our colleagues. And so Summer Melt is influenced by multiple departments. It takes the entire university to make this work. And so it does start with admissions, but there's a partnership there. And so there is a handoff from when they are enrolled and they move to the admitted stage. And then it moves over to the orientation team to really support and remove barriers and build affinity to the university. So Lisa, I would love to start with you. Like, how do you all work together with your enrollment teams or work together to support this effort? Just because we know that onboarding families is a big piece of the Summer Melt process for students.
Yeah, for sure. So we meet regularly with our admissions office. So my office is separate from the admissions office, but we meet every other week. We have a meeting with all of us, and we actually include our housing reps as well, because we have a housing shortage in Logan, and it can impact our numbers. And so we have done a lot of effort over the last few years to really consolidate the messaging that's going out to both students and our families to make sure it's consistent and timed and then tuned to whatever's going on in the year. So we've had a lot of discussions about FAFSA, for example, and our various deadlines this year. So we work regularly with them. We share custody of campus ESP. We both pay for half of the bill. And then there's someone in the admissions office who does a lot of posting to parents in part of the funnel to our prospective parents. And then when their student pays the deposit, we consider them confirmed, and it kind of comes over to our office. And that's when we start communicating with the students and the families. But we overlap a lot and we collaborate a ton. Like daily, we're sending Slacks back and forth and emails, and there's a lot of overlap there.
Awesome. Definitely have been there before, working together and owning that relationship. So definitely a partnership. Nathan, how about you? Like, what do you do on campus? Communicate? How do you share the load, just because it is a true partnership?
Yeah, so definitely some similarities with Utah State and Lisa that collaboration with admissions and other offices, even for us, our International Student Scholar Support Office, and housing and residential life, like Lisa mentioned. One of the things that's different at New Mexico State is our deposit is when they sign up for orientation. And so New Mexico State doesn't have a separate deposit. So when they pay the deposit for orientation or otherwise fully pay for orientation, that is their admissions deposit as well. And so it's a lot of collaborating, and we've got a homegrown orientation system that we can pull reports off of. And so we can share back with the admissions office, okay, these students have started to communicate. You can they've started to sign up, please help communicate, get them signed up for orientation. We can then see with our Campus ESP platform and our CRM, the family contacts that we have for those same students and try to communicate directly to those support systems as well. But it is a lot of that back and forth, that collaboration, that it's not, oh, they're your student, now they're our student, and never the two communicate. So it's definitely, I know we've got a one directional arrow here, but it's kind of back and forth to help with that summer melt.
Yeah. I know from experience working in orientation, we would host like a new student transitions committee meeting every month, and we would work with our campus partners who are involved in orientation to really get buy-in and support from those areas on campus, because they really make up orientation. And so it's more than just the orientation office, it's your whole campus community that's involved. So if you're trying to build a connection and work together with other campus partners, this is a way to do it, just to kind of help get that feedback and buy-in and just provide the support to those families and students ultimately. All right. Number 2, share information that generates action, connection, and trust. And so this is very transactional right now with this piece. So thinking about ways to really remove barriers, provide need to have information, and just consistently remind families and students of things that they need to get done. And so although we want to share the story of why they should come to this institution, there are lots of things that need to be done before they can officially get there. And so these are some of those reminders along the way. Yeah. So Lisa, this is your first, since you're up first, would you like to share like some of those pieces that you help families and students kind of get things done and out of the way so they can start to learn more about the university and build affinity to the university?
Yeah, for sure. I think this is part of our efforts to build that seamless onboarding process where we don't look like a bunch of offices that aren't talking to each other. And so this is one example that we did recently. We sent one out to parents that just basically said, let us know your plans. There's a big push through our admissions team to get students to either confirm their enrollment, or the second little part here is the last half of the email. I think if you click, it'll show up. Yep, there we go. Or defer their admission. We have a huge population of students who defer their admission for religious missions or gap years or what have you. So we want them to take action on that and get in the correct recruitment pool for the future, or to decline their offer, which is helpful. A lot of times students, when they decide on a college, they just, their mode is, well, now I will just ignore everything coming from these other colleges. It's really helpful for us to know that they're not coming. So we've made a really simple form that they can fill out with a quick link that we can easily text or email or get to them really quickly. And so we sent this out to parents, and we did see a bump in confirmations, deferrals, and declined offers, which is great. Other things that we've sent out, we've obviously been doing a lot about the FAFSA, but anything that we send out about scholarships, financial aid, paying for school, how to set up a payment plan, how to, as a delegate of a student, get in and help pay the tuition. Those ones always consistently are among our highest clicks that parents really want to know about.
Awesome. Nathan.
Yeah, and some of the differences at New Mexico State, we do similar things that Lisa does, but to try to answer, I think, a question I saw in the chat, we really are thankful that Campus ESP ties into our CRM, which is Slate. so that we can get that family information as soon as admissions has it. But then we also have internal forms that we use, and we collaborate back and forth between the offices to get those filled out. We also try to make sure myself or our family engagement coordinator, Kirsten, is at any yield event from pretty much end of March through the early part of the summer. So as families are coming with their students to help decide on those next steps, to check things off on the checklist, that we're not only just helping communicate with family members, but helping the families realize the support that they have at the institution too. Since a lot of times it is a full family decision about going to college and which university or college, or deferring for a year, gap year, all those kind of things. We try to make sure that the families know about the support that they have in addition to the support that the students have.
And I'll hop in and answer that CRM question too. We don't have a CRM for continuing students, but we do for our recruitment and enrollment onboarding process, and we use Banner Recruit right now. And then just a quick mention about how we get people into the portal. And I think, Nathan, you're similar, where you were just saying anytime we're at an event, we try to be there. We've got QR codes. We send, basically, if a student puts a parent email when they apply to the university, we automatically subscribe them to Campus ESP. And then they can log in and provide a phone number if they want text and do some further registration. But we really try to cast a wide net in getting families into the system.
Awesome. Lisa, I'm glad you share that, because there's lots of ways that families can get information using your system. Just if you, depending on where you are with your communication with families or collecting family information, there are different ways that you can get it. So don't feel discouraged in that way. So thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, another one. Yeah, so Kirsten here did a extended communication community for your families. Nathan, is there anything you want to add there while we before we move on to the next tip?
Yeah, I think you know, since we open our orientation sessions on December 1st for the next summer, a lot of times we have students who sign up and then forget that they have signed up for orientation. And so then even when communication is going to their school email or the personal email that they use for their application or for signing up for orientation, I know there's some students nowadays that have 4, 5, 6 personal email addresses, and they have one that they used for application and then they never looked at again, but that's the one that we have. So when we have families signed family information, whether we've imported it into the Campus ESP portal or they've gone in and added themselves, we try to make sure they're aware of large things like orientation as well. You know, we use the newsletter for those checklists and other things, but you know, to say, hey, either your student did sign you up for orientation or didn't sign you up, do you want to make sure you're getting the information as well?
Thank you. All right, so number 2 is really around support. And so thinking about how you can use your current students and families to really support new families and students, that's really going to make a difference and show impact in the ROI of why they should come to this institution. And parents and families just really want to know how they can help each other. So showing students like their experiences, what they're doing, how they're getting involved, it really will make or break their experience there, and just show them how confident they can be in their student going to the institution. All right, so we have some great screenshots of some current students on campus. I know Sarah Lee has graduated and moved on to nursing school, Nathan, but I wanted to showcase her. But would love to get your input on why the student experience is important to share, just with families and current students as well.
Yeah, sure. And you know, some of this I know was listed on the other page, but not all the families can come to orientation. We do both virtual and in-person orientations. And so even if we're talking about things in presentations like, you know, the calendar of when your student might experience different things as a college student, or sometimes to be more supportive and more directive, or less supportive, less directive, those kind of things. They really also want to know from the students what it's like to be a student there at the university at this time. You know, Utah State, New Mexico State, we have similar names. We're both the Aggies, but the student experience is not going to be the same at our two institutions. And they definitely don't want to know what it was like for me to go to college 20 years ago. And so having student engagement really helps them either see campus through a student's eyes when we do videos or pictures, or just what it's really like, what's the hands-on experience. You know, we can show family members or even show prospective students at orientation how to go to the bookstore website and register for textbooks, you know, and pick out their textbooks, and whether they're, you know, an online textbook or a rental or a, you know, buy the 300-page book, you know, whatever you want. But it's that student feedback that really helps them get the best picture they can.
Absolutely. And in our in-person orientations, we do a student to parent panel. I know many of you do as well, but that's always our most highly rated section. Afterwards, the students have a line of parents wanting to ask them questions. And so I totally agree. This is a way for students to be able to get some of that like student information and that firsthand of what it is to actually be a student here.
Mm-hmm. Even thinking about like your website. So when I was working in orientation, we always had our orientation leaders on our website, and they're in the booklet that was shared with families, just so they could start making connections. So whether they were from the same state or saying they're from the same region, whatever the case may be, they were finding connection points with other family members and students to just make a mental note that that could be their buddy to drive home with, or hurricanes were a thing in South Carolina. So campus closures are just something they have to think about and prepare for, but that's just a way for them to kind of start to think about those things and just really build those connections early on. And so the human element is really impactful, especially during that transition phase for families and students. All right, and number 3 is talking about proof points. So really thinking about student outcomes, details on resources, and really focusing on that ROI. So they want to know that their investment is what they hoped it would be. And so how can you all as supporters and thinking about your campus community share that with families moving forward? So I would love for Nathan to start first with just some of the connection points that you build with your families.
Yeah, so one of the things that we've started to do here at New Mexico State is what we call our Ask Me Anything series, which is a virtual webinar. The students and families can sign up for. They can see the topic for that webinar. Like this one, it gets recorded. And so we even allow them to send questions in advance. So if, you know, Mel's a family member and she knows that she can't make that time, she can send questions in advance. And that really helps, one, the presenters know what kind of questions the current family population has. Also tells us what other things we might want to add as another newsletter article in Campus ESP, or make sure we're really touching on at orientation, or, you know, any of those kind of other touch points, using this as a way to connect with families who are further away or time-wise can't make it to orientation. Or, you know, the example here is about FAFSA, and we all know how much it changed this year. Maybe the schools are getting the information right now and then have to spend 6 weeks actually getting the students' information put together. So these are designed for us. The predominant webinar is in English, then we also try to have Spanish options when available due to our Hispanic serving institution.
Yeah, and I think with ours, we try to humanize the staff, make sure that they know that we're here for them. They can contact us. A lot of our questions and start with, I don't know where to start, or sometimes it's, don't let my student know I'm calling you, but I have a question about this, but I don't want them to think I'm meddling. So just to help them know that we are not judging them for their questions, and we are kind of their contact people as they have questions for the university, and to just make them comfortable through that whole process. Also, I think we have done a lot about in our in-person orientation about talking about return on investment. How will this, like the family, the whole family is a stakeholder in this journey in that regard, and they really need to feel comfortable with their students' decision to attend college, which there are definitely some people who question that, and I totally get that. And so we need to do a lot more, I think, and in helping parents understand what is the value of this education for my student, for my family, and then the value of this particular school. I know a lot of times parents will look at sticker prices and compare schools like apples to apples, which is the institution. You're like, we're not the same. No, it's not the same. But I think we really have to do a good job of helping them understand the value of our specific institution. So we've done that pretty well in our in-person orientation sessions. We have faculty speak. We have a big presentation about finances, and I feel like we do a good job there. But one of our goals this year is to take that online and to really help parents like walk them through that narrative. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways, like we have a podcast that we plan to use, obviously articles and things like that. But that is one of our goals for the upcoming year.
Love that. All right, and then create multiple ways so families can engage during the summer. So Lisa, we'll start with you. So you talked about your podcast, which I'm really jealous about because I would love to be a podcast host one day. But can you start and talk about some of the things that you do outside of your inbox? I thought that was really creative, Mel.
Yeah, for sure. So we send postcards. Obviously, we assume that any of the postcards that go to the students are going to be read by the parents as well, maybe exclusively read by the parents, but that's a big reason why sometimes we use postcards instead of other mailings. But we also send postcards directly to the parents, inviting them to engage with us through this Campus ESP, or coming to an in-person orientation if they can't, or coming to our parent family weekend, go visiting our website and so forth. We also, so for the parents who come to our in-person orientation, we put quite a bit of time and budget into a really nice parent handbook. And it's kind of the companion piece to these PowerPoint presentations. So we have a lot of people coming in, and we try to humanize the staff. So we'll bring in like the director of an office, they'll talk about it. But if you've ever hosted presentations, they were running long, and people aren't great at cutting out slides when they're over time. So we put a lot of effort into this really polished parent handbook that they could follow along during parent orientation. And then if the parents don't come to parent orientation, we mail it to them in the summer. We also utilize the SMS notification part of Campus ESP. So that's a separate thing that parents can opt into, but we try to make sure they know that they can opt into that. And then we do have our parent and family podcast. And so it's honestly kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. We've had it since 2020. But that's a really great tool for external audiences to further clarify things or talk it out in a way that maybe an email can't quite hit all the nuances, and again, humanize the staff. But then also there's a little bit of internal audience that is important, where people maybe might be upset that they didn't get 15 minutes at orientation to talk to the parents, or they didn't necessarily come in, get exactly what they wanted when they came in to say, hey, I need to get my information out to students and families. But it's nice to have a lot of little tools where we can say like, well, that's maybe not the best place to talk about that, but here's a lot of other ways. Like, let's get you on a podcast. We have a few other methods to get information to students, but for getting information to student or parents and families, these tools and this newsletter content has been really helpful in that regard as well.
And, over at New Mexico State, we also use the SMS system through Campus ESP, and collaborate with admissions on some postcards, although I think most of ours do go to the students, which I agree with Lisa, the parents are gonna read them anyway, so we're hitting both sides there. On the Ask Me Anything sessions, we do about one a month, a little bit less than that, but about one a month, based on a relevant topic for that time. And some of the sessions are based on this summer melt. So we typically have a session during the summer with housing and dining, and some of those last minute questions about move-in. But we also meet and do a session during the school year with academic advising prior to advising for either the fall or the spring semester. So we do collaborate with family members or communicate with family members and collaborate with offices, both in the prospective and current student arena. We also then try to hold some events, both during move-in and during the school year for family members. And some of it is just making sure that they know that those things exist, so that when they're moving their student in on a Saturday or a Sunday, that it's not, okay, move into the residence hall and now there's nothing more for you. You know, we're trying to ease that separation, ease that engagement into the larger university community. And then the third thing on here that I'm excited about that is 100% my staff doing this and coming up with it for the first time this year, but we're really excited about it, is taking some of those highlighted areas, highlighted ways to help support your student and getting them out on a magnet. And so, you know, it's not going to be as long as Lisa's parent handbook, so it doesn't have a ton of information on it, but using a web address or a QR code to help get them to information on either in a consolidated place on our website or directly to the offices, and that they as families can connect with, or, you know, if there's a form for Residence Life to put in a maintenance request, like sometimes the student is going to contact the family member to say, well, I haven't been doing XYZ in my room because the light's out. Well, then they can help know where those resources are.
No, that's a great idea. Thinking about just some things if you're not using Campus CSP, thinking about ways maybe you can do some affinity groups over Zoom to support families by identity or just by topics. Even if you're using Campus CSP, an orientation hub could be a great tool to use just to push in all of that orientation content. From an access standpoint, maybe everyone can't come to orientation, but it's a great way to send reminders and just revisit those resources that were once shared at orientation. So there's definitely some ways that you can support families, whether on campus or off campus, or able to come to campus or not. All right, so thinking about the power of orientation, Lisa, you really said something to me that I remember as an orientation professional about the importance of orientation, and maybe not everyone can be at orientation as far as campus partners. And so orientation can only be so long. Not everyone can have a session at orientation. So really thinking about the strategy behind that and who was able to be in front of families and students. So I would really love to learn or just know like what is covered at orientation to make it beneficial for your families and students, and how you navigate those pieces.
Yeah, definitely. Nathan, do you want to go or you want me to go first?
You can go first.
Okay, awesome. So in our parent orientation, so our orientation sessions are one day. And so we do have a lot to fit in. And so we definitely try to hit on the key points and then helping them understand how to find information later and who to contact later. So our handbook is a big part of that. Our websites are a big part of that. We really focus heavily on return on investment, and the thing that we know that they are thinking about finances, paying for this, is it worth it? Can we make this work? And so our most highly rated presenter is the director of our Student Money Management Center. So he comes and gives some tips, and then he invites them to meet with him personally, like one-on-one. And his calendar, you can watch it just fill up after these sessions every day. And so I like that there are some actionable things for them there. We do have some directors that talk about academic belonging. We talk about, as part of our ROI, we have our Career Design Center talk about how they are going to help a student translate this into a career, and a few things along with that. And then we talk about campus safety. Those are our big points that we hit. And then we have an information fair where they can go get some of those transactional questions answered. But those are the main points that we hit. And then we play around with different presenters, honestly, over the years, but those are kind of the main things: wellness, safety, paying for it all, ROI, and yeah, I think I hit the most of them.
Yeah, I would say at New Mexico State, it's fairly similar. We try to find that balance between what sessions do we want just for the family members, just for the supporters, separate from their students? Which ones do we want with their students? Because we know that engaging the family is helpful and supportive for both the student and for the university. But we also know that not everyone is able to bring a family member to orientation. And then we also know that we've got a variety of families at orientation, some that this is their 6th, 7th student to college. They might have multiple students at college, but the first one in New Mexico State, their student is going to be a first-gen college student. And so we try to mix and match the information to help get to those specific questions that families have, but also then provide that big picture. So provide that, what's the ROI, why New Mexico State, why, you came to orientation, why actually sitting in the sessions is going to be beneficial versus hanging out in our family lounge at the bookstore for the next day or two. Although they're
Yeah.
welcome to do that too.
Well, thinking about that, I know you talked about the why, but could you maybe share a little bit more about why you have it for both students and families? I know some institutions only do it for students and not for the family members. And so if you can share maybe why you even think it's beneficial to have it, that could be a great starting point.
Yeah. So other than the fact that it's a CAS standard for a new student orientation, I think really one of the reasons that we make sure we have a family orientation program alongside each of our orientation options is because of that being that option to support the supporters. And so, Ashley, the student, and Ashley, the parent, may have the same question, but they may not understand the answer the same way. And so one, we're providing information where multiple people can hear it or can hear it in different ways. But then it also helps support the families throughout their time at the university, because now, even if you don't remember what was said, you remember something about health and safety or something about university accounts receivable was said at orientation. And there's a connection point to either reach out to our office and say, hey, I remember something at orientation about this, or I don't remember anything at orientation. Can you help me find the answer so that I can help my student? So it's, again, it's kind of the other side of that, nudging the nudger to get things done. It's supporting the supporter to help make sure it's a positive experience for the student and the whole family.
Thank you. Lisa, anything you want to add for your experience?
I think I was just thinking, so we used to have students register for classes at orientation. We had a hard time with parents were like, I am going with them. I don't need your parent orientation. I will be with my students so they don't mess this up, or so we catch all the information. But we no longer have the students register at orientation. I think that was one of personally the best choices that we've made for our institution. But I really think every once in a while we'll have a parent go with the student, and they usually come back because they realize, I also think it's really impactful for the students to have that experience with their peers and talk about their hopes and fears and expectations and get a sense of what this will be like. And I think sometimes when the parents go with their student, they realize oh, there's wisdom here in having us separate, there are two audiences, like you were saying, that are really, there's good information for both of them here.
Absolutely. Students are trying to make friends at the same time. So they're like, the information is great, but I'm trying to make connections too. So definitely helps having family members be a part of the experience. So thinking more about families as advisors. So your families really are supporting students. The students see families as a way of getting information, retaining it, understanding it. So like Nathan was saying, the student could interpret it one way, the family member interprets it the other way. And so it's important that they have that connection point to really support them throughout this process. See your families as stakeholders. They are looking at all the pieces when it comes to investing in their students' college career. So they are the financial piece, but also the emotional piece as well. And so this really is a partnership for them, and they really are wanting to feel confident in the decisions that they're making with their students. And of course, families are the supporters. So you need to remove barriers and ways for them to feel like they have a connection and affinity to the university, and that they have understanding and resources and real people that they can connect with and talk to on a college campus. It can be very difficult and challenging for families, especially first-gen families that are needing to, one, understand the process, but also find the right people. And so if you can be that person or office that really can support them and give them all the tools and resources to be successful, that's really going to make the experience better for them. Yeah.
All right. So this is where I get to reintroduce myself here. So wanted to just quickly walk through a couple of things that we can suggest anybody on this call who wants to learn more can head to. And then we have some questions that are coming in that I want to make sure we have some time for. So if you have not asked a question, but you have one kind of in the back of your head, please go ahead and throw that into the Q&A or the chat, and we will get to that in a second. But if you are a customer, I want to make sure you're aware of a Campus ESP learning series. This is like a webinar series that we have just for customers. If you're a prospect, you're welcome to join, but it might get a little into the platform for you. But it really is hands-on learning to really understand how some of our features operate and make sure you're as successful in the platform as possible. So always take a look at what's coming up. We have a pretty full schedule on the website right now. We also have coming up our 6th annual Campus ESP Summit. This is our user conference that, again, prospects, people who are not current customers, are welcome to join. It's a day-long conference this year. It's in Philadelphia, which is where our headquarters is also. So we're super excited to welcome you all to our hometown. And it's a day-long of just really in-depth case studies presented by customers. Campus ESP is not the star of the show. Our amazing customers and their success stories are. There's a lot of inspiration to be had in that day. And if you're not a customer, but you're like, this is maybe something we want to look into to help us do just a little bit more with our families, obviously head to our website, reach out. I will be happy to connect you with somebody who can really walk you through the platform and show you what we might be able to do to help you. But let's get to some of these questions. I also have everyone's emails on the screen. So if there's a question that you just, for some reason, want to ask one-on-one or don't have the time to get to today, please reach out to any of these people. They have all been kind enough to give you their real addresses. I promise they are real. And I know they're all busy, but I know that they will be happy to share their insights with you. But a couple of questions that I've got here, which I'm just going to start throwing out kind of in a chronological order. Actually, not quite sure if New Mexico or Utah State currently has rolling admissions, but somebody has a question about how that handoff can work between admissions teams and orientation teams if it's a rolling admission and a student perhaps, applies fairly late in the process.
Nathan, I'll let you jump in here too, but I think for us, we have rolling admissions. And I guess the way I'm interpreting that question is like, so a student will come, for example, in August, and this happens a lot where they decide there and then that they're going to school, they apply, they try and do all the processes at that time. And so for us, our handoff is when the student confirms their enrollment. So they pay that deposit or postpone it for financial reasons. And so this has been something that we didn't have, like that handoff wasn't very clear or very held to until just like a year or two ago. And that's been really helpful to define like, okay, the recruiters are going to welcome them in, get them to confirm. And then as they come into our system, we have drip content that basically is really, so whether they confirm their enrollment in like November of the year before or early August, they're going to get that same kind of drip content that's like, welcome, you're confirmed, here's your next steps, here's who you contact. So part of it is through that automatic content. And then part of it is just, we have a group of students who reach out to those students once they confirm to help them through the rest of their steps. And for some of them, it's really condensed into the last few days or even the first week of classes, they still come on board.
Yeah, I would say pretty similar. New Mexico, a lot of times, is called the land of mañana. And so we do have students that make the decision either to apply or that they've chosen to come to New Mexico State as late as the first week or even later of classes. And so it is a lot of utilizing our resources like Campus ESP with the drip campaigns, but then also having that immediate collaboration with the admissions office, and even sometimes housing and dining in terms of housing availability, because sometimes we do have to have that hard conversation of you can be admitted to the university, but we don't have any family housing left, or we really do need you to sign up for the last in-person orientation, which is tomorrow. So we need to get you taken care of on that today. At orientation will kind of help answer the questions that you have. So it really is that back and forth, that collaboration process for those later admit students, more so than I would say the students who are on the game and applied really early and have time in between tasks.
Great, thank you, guys. I actually have a couple of questions here that are all pertaining, I think, to a similar theme around bilingual families. I know in particular that there are a number of customers, including New Mexico State, that really try to do a lot of communications in Spanish because they either are an HSI or just know they have a very large Spanish-speaking family population. So can you guys talk about anything that you do, both from a strategy perspective, as well as what kind of resources you are providing to families in different kinds of languages?
Sure, I can go first, because I know one of the attendees asked about victories and failures with serving this population. In New Mexico State, we do host some of our in-person and some of our virtual orientations with family orientation in English and family orientation in Spanish. We do not host a family orientation in Spanish every single one of our orientation sessions, but it is listed on our website which ones we are doing that on. The success that we have with that is that our bilingual student population that apply and really want to be orientation leaders to help families the way that their family was helped through orientation and through other processes. The slight failure that we have with that sometimes is we don't have a fluent Spanish speaker in every single office that engages with orientation. And so it's trying to figure out, does admissions, does financial, does another office that has a bilingual presenter collaborate with that office to share their information? There's different, just like there's different dialects in English and in Spanish and other languages. Are we using a consistent form of Spanish? Here it's a little more Mexican Spanish, especially with how close we are to Mexico. Whereas I grew up in school learning Castilian Spanish, and so we have conversations about which words and which language we do use when we're trying to get a point across in another language.
Yeah, and I'll also chime in with maybe a little bit of a failure here too, but we for several years we were trying to get sort of some momentum behind a Spanish-speaking parent orientation where the entire session was in Spanish, and we had a hard time getting our attendance very high, and so we would have, if we couldn't find a Spanish speaker from an office, we would have someone kind of help present for them, and we would record those videos and put them on the internet. And our attendance wasn't great, but what we found is that a lot of these parents were coming to our other orientation sessions with their students. And so what we have done recently that seems to be working a bit better is we hire a student translator, and then that's an accommodation that a parent can request as they sign up. And then that student stays with that family or those families throughout the whole day, and they translate if they want, like the FM system, so they can hear. They do it that way. Sometimes they just prefer to kind of be off in the corner, but that student basically is with them the whole day, and so that seems to work well. We do translate our some of our recruitment publications, but that handbook I talked about, we do translate and print that in Spanish, and then we have online English and Spanish versions on our website for people who need like screen readers or just larger text or whatever.
That's great. One question here, what recommendations do you have for smaller schools with limited resources? How can you try to do a lot in terms of programming and family communication when you only have a little? And I know you guys are both at fairly large institutions in terms of size and being a public. I know some large publics who also feel like they have very small teams and very limited resources. So I think there's probably something to learn for no matter where you're sitting. But if somebody's trying to do a lot with a little, where would you recommend they start?
I would start with doing one thing. And then if you feel you have time and energy to do a second thing, and then versus, I mean, you can take a whiteboard, write down everything you want to do, but then figure out what's the one thing to start with. And sometimes, like happened in New Mexico State, we had 3 or 4 things, and then we decided we couldn't continue doing one of those things. And so that's when we transitioned to doing something else. We are fortunate that we are able to use part of the orientation fee to cover Campus ESP. And to answer another question, we use it for both incoming and continuing families. And so we have dedicated a financial resource to do that. But there's a lot of things that we do that could be done without a platform like Campus ESP. And it might be harder. I love that Campus ESP can automate a lot of stuff for us. But really, when we decide we're going to do something, we start with one thing and get that one thing accomplished. And then we see if we have the time and capacity to add another thing.
I was gonna say the same thing. Start small, see if any other campus partners are interested in sending you like content for a newsletter. I think parents are just happy for any communication. So even if it's just like a monthly or weekly email from you saying, here's what's upcoming, here's kind of what is going on, I think parents are really appreciative of whatever you do. And then part of it is also like when you have staff who have kids at other universities that are like, we need to do this same thing. And you're like, they have a team of 20. Sometimes just letting that roll off, you're like, great, that's awesome. We're doing a lot of great stuff given our capacity.
I think that's great advice. I think something we always say here at Campus ESP is, as long as you're doing something, you're in the right direction, right? We are really lucky to work with a lot of customers who are growing departments and doing a lot of really creative things and making a huge impact. But we also work with a lot of customers who are teams of one, who maybe have multiple titles on their name, and really this is part of their job. And we really think that at the crux of it is if you are trying to communicate with families in some way, shape, or form, and provide them the information they need to help their student, you're on the right path. And just take it one step at a time and do as much as you can. And just know that you are still making a big difference with that. And that pretty much takes us to the end of our time, end of our content here. So I just want to take a quick moment to really thank Nathan and Lisa for spending some time with us today and sharing their experiences, insights. And thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy days to listen and share your questions and thoughts. Like I said, this recording and deck will be sent to you tomorrow. Feel free to share it with anybody in your departments, or maybe if you're in orientation, share it with your admissions department if you can build that relationship. And if you have any questions, reach out to any of the names on the screen or to myself. I'll be sending you that email tomorrow, so you can just reply to that. Thank you again, and everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.